What's up, everybody? This is Alex Christoforou from The Duran, and I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of TheDuran.com. And today we're going to be taking a look at Turkey's release of 2 Greek soldiers. So, Alexander, this is a story that's not getting reported pretty much anywhere except for Greece. Maybe a little bit in Turkey, I'm not sure. But a curious thing happened on the 15th of August. 2 Greek soldiers that were being held in a Turkish prison for 6 months were suddenly released by the Turkish courts. And they were immediately picked up by a Greek government plane with the defense minister, and they were escorted back to Greece. Now, the 2 soldiers, just to give a little backdrop as to why they were in prison, the 2 soldiers were on a routine training mission. I don't want to say mission, but just routine training in North Greece. And it was a lot of snow. And so the borders between Turkey and Greece, you couldn't really make out the borders between when Greece ended and when Turkey began. And so you usually have the soldiers, Turkish soldiers or Greek soldiers, you know, they're usually walking, and during the bad weather, they'll cross over many times and nothing really happens. This time, though, these soldiers did cross over into Turkish territory, and the Turkish military grabbed them right away. And we're charging them with espionage. They put them in prison. They started charging them with espionage. And it took them 6 months to release them up until today. And the court that released them is not the court that's trying them. So the court saw the evidence. They said, okay, we're going to release them on bail. And they're free to go. They're free to leave. And then we're going to, have the trial at a later date. Now, in the backdrop of everything that's going on with Turkey, with the lira's collapse, with all the problems that Erdogan is having with the United States and his war of words with Trump, his tense relations with the European Union, the migration issues, Syria, it also goes worth saying for our viewers that Greece is currently holding, I believe, 6 or 8 Turkish military. They're in Greece right now, and these are Turkish military people that Erdogan claims were involved in the coup in 2015-16. And they're applying for asylum in Greece, and the Greek authorities are not releasing these guys to Erdogan and to Turkey. So you had a very strange composite of events that took place. What do you make of all of this? What's happening here?
Right, I think the first thing to say, and I think it's an important point to make to our viewers, is that, of course, in Turkey, Erdogan, I'm sorry to say, controls most things. And these court decisions that you were talking about, which seem very strange on the face of it, I mean, releasing people on bail in the knowledge that they will go to Greece and never come back again, whilst at the same time pretending or going through the motions that you're going to try them in future. It is impossible, it is inconceivable to my mind that this has happened without Erdogan's personal involvement. So what I think is happening here is that Erdogan, who is an extremely confrontational man, he is not someone who backs off easily or gracefully, and who always and invariably takes a confrontational position, and whose relations with Greece have not been good, partly because of the fact that the Greeks appear to be giving refuge to Turkish soldiers, members of the Turkish military, that Erdogan says were involved in the coup against him in 2016. It seems to me that Erdogan has decided in his own interests that he needs to release these soldiers in order to back off in some ways. And that points to something else, which is that Erdogan is under a huge amount of pressure at the moment. The economic crisis in Turkey is getting worse. I know there's been certain adjustments upwards in the lira, but I don't think many people feel very confident that that's sustainable. And I think he realizes that he's got to start mending fences where he can with people in Greece. He's got to look for his friends in places like Qatar. He's got to do whatever steps he can possibly take in order to support this situation which he finds himself in.
Now, what do you make of the fact that Erdogan, as you say, probably instructed the courts to release these 2 Turkish soldiers, but when it comes to the U.S. pastor, Pastor Brunson, he has yet to be released. I was reading a blog post from Automatic Earth that I saw on Zero Hedge. They reran the blog post, and they come out with the theory, the posit that perhaps Erdogan is trying to make it seem like the courts in Turkey are impartial and that he really doesn't have any control of it. And they say that because the Erdogan government, Erdogan's spokesperson, said that the problems with Brunson will be resolved as far as the judicial path is followed, which is this impartial judicial path. So do you see Erdogan kind of positioning himself to kind of say, you know what, I'm not the one holding the pastor. You know, it's not me, it's the courts. But everything will be resolved because justice in Turkey truly is blind. Or at least that's well, what Erdogan wants to make it appear like.
I think that is that. I mean, it's the kind of a complicated scheme that Erdogan might want to come up with. I'm sorry to say, if that's what he thinks, is going to fool no one. Everybody knows the reality of what goes on in Turkey. Now, it's conceivable that he's possibly looking for ways to release this pastor in ways that are going to cause him the least possible embarrassment. And he may be hoping that, you know, the court, he can get the court to do it, and he can say that it's really nothing to do with him. But I'm afraid no one, whether in Turkey or outside it, is going to be very fooled by any of this. And I think that has to be clearly understood. So perhaps Erdogan does have such ideas, but as I said, it's not going to help him very much. His problem with this pastor is that he's taken such a strong public position about him that however the pastor is released, it's going to look very, very embarrassing and humiliating for Erdogan if he does eventually decide to release him, which, by the way, I think he will. I think the forces are now overwhelming and that he will not be able to withstand demands to release him before very long.
There's a lot of people that say that Erdogan demanded the U.S. release Gulen, who's the person he believes is his main rival and the man behind the curtains who's stirring up a lot of trouble for Erdogan in Turkey, as well as the guy who was behind the coup, so on and so. So Gulen is kind of his arch enemy, and he's in the U.S. in Pennsylvania, you know, under the protection of the U.S. government. Do you think that was a possibility, that perhaps Erdogan tried to leverage the pastor for Gulen?
I think that's possible, but I have to say, if Erdogan ever thought that, then it shows that he really hasn't a clue of how things happen in the United States. There is no possibility that the United States, an immeasurably more powerful country than Turkey, will ever hand over Gulen in return for a pastor who the US government says has been arrested illegally. That just isn't going to happen. The Russians or the Chinese, or certainly the Russians, do play these kind of negotiating card games with the US, but they're in a very different position from the one that from Turkey is, and there's no chance, none at all in my opinion, that the Turks will ever agree to this.
So Alexander, going back to Greece, Greece has had a pretty horrendous summer. We had the fires in Mati, which killed, I think, upwards of 100 people. The Greeks are very upset with Tsipras and the way he's been running the country. That should come as no surprise. And what happened with the fires in Greece was really sparked a lot of outrage because the country was so unprepared for the disaster. And so, Tsipras is without a doubt an embattled prime minister, and he's a very unpopular prime minister. So do you think that this, I guess you could call it a victory, the fact that he was able to secure the release of these two soldiers, even though he really had nothing to do with it, and most of it was Erdogan's wishes, Erdogan's initiative to release these two soldiers. Do you think that this will help Tsipras in any way with his popularity in Greece?
In a word, no. I don't think it's going to make the slightest difference. I have just been to Greece. I have seen the conditions there. I have seen the mood of people in Greece. I think people in Greece are extremely angry. I think they are furious with the way Tsipras has been running the economy. I think they are furious with the way he's handled the fires. I think they are furious by the fact that he's messed up, as they see it, the Macedonian issue. And I think a lot of people are not impressed by his handling of the of relations with Russia either. A subject we've talked about in previous programmes. So the short and straightforward answer is that I don't think they're going to be impressed in the slightest. Greeks are actually a quite sophisticated people politically, and I think they are fully aware of the fact that this has nothing to do with Tsipras, and they're not going to be impressed by it at all.
Right, and going back to Erdogan and in closing, so we can close out this segment. Do you think Erdogan, by releasing these two soldiers, is this part of? You think he's seeing things in a long game kind of perspective? Do you think he's moving around those chess pieces and he's planning all of this out by releasing these two soldiers, by dealing with Trump and Pastor Brunson in a certain way, or do you think that Erdogan is just making this all up as he goes along? Because Turkey is every day it's in the news for something else, and there's no doubt that Erdogan is extremely unpredictable. Is there a method to his madness, or is it just madness?
Erdogan is a survivor. I think that he will do whatever he has to do in order to survive politically. And he is also, in Turkish terms, within Turkey itself, a formidably effective political leader. I think this is something we must never forget about Erdogan. I mean, he has a very strong hold on Turkish public opinion. But is he a tactician or is he a strategist? The answer with Erdogan is that it is always and entirely and exclusively tactics. And when I say tactics, it is really from one day to the next. I mean, he will maneuver, and he will maneuver sometimes with skill in order to keep himself on top. But if you're looking for a greater long-term political strategy, I doubt that one exists. To the extent that Erdogan has had strategies in the past, for example, his ideas of locating Turkey in some greater Middle East game where Turkey will fulfill the role that the Ottoman Empire once did. Those sort of plans, when you analyse them, they are always, frankly, delusional. They have little contact with reality, and they always and invariably go wrong. So, as I said, to come back to what we said, I think that at his most effective, he is a tactician. He is not a strategist, and I don't think he has any great long-term plan for Turkey at all, at least certainly not a realistic one.
Alexander Mercouris, thank you very much for an interesting topic on the recent release of the two Greek soldiers. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on that notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. And remember to visit the Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, buy a t-shirt, help us out, help us keep broadcasting. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Until next time, take care.